So there is a new motion this morning suggesting that the Commonwealth open the door with their questioning of Dr. Russell to allow Dr. LaPosada to talk about bite wounds. So I've read that.
Correct. I'd like to be heard on that briefly.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
What is going on? How are you doing? Hope everybody's being safe because the whole world's gone crazy. But I'm here to ask the question, what on earth are we doing? And it's been a minute since my last Karen Read update. It's been a minute since I made a video, and it'll be a minute before I make another one. But legitimately, for everybody who believes Karen Read is guilty of this crime, what has you so convinced? I understand what the narrative is as far as what law enforcement is saying. John O'Keefe and Karen Read were together. They found pieces of taillight around him, pieces of taillight they claim came from Karen Read's SUV. And there's supposedly statements that she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. But beyond that, legitimately, what is proven she committed this crime? What is proven she hit him with that SUV? I said in the beginning, and by the way, welcome to the point where everything's alleged, but I said in the beginning, when Hank Brennan made those statements that he was here to ensure Karen Read got a fair trial, that was all bullcrap. And honestly, for me, I feel like I was right. Now, you can feel free to disagree at any point in time because this is an open discussion channel. And while I did miss a lot of the actual live streams, I did follow this thing through news reports and I did follow it through various content creators. But here's what I'm talking about. Through numerous points before this retrial even started, Hank Brennan tried his very best to keep certain things out of the jury's ears. He would make the case to Judge Bev that this isn't relevant or this would cause some sort of bias against the state. And I don't believe it's a shocker to anyone when Judge Bev would agree with him. But how many times in this trial did he use those things that he said had no place in this particular hearing as a sword and a shield, so to speak? How often did he bring up or hint at something that he wasn't supposed to, while knowing the defense couldn't talk about it? And then Judge Bev allowed it. I mean, at what point are we going to say in this country, it's enough of the political prosecutors? It's enough of these people sitting in these positions for so long that they become stagnant, corrupt, and they're not there for the benefit of the people that elected them. They're there for the benefit of themselves. And I feel like that's what's going on in this particular situation. And honestly, I feel like Norfolk should be ashamed of themselves. Not everybody. I'm not talking about everybody. I hear y'all calling into the young jerks. But man, there's a problem up there. Look, the whole issue from this trial from the beginning was the investigation. And as far as I could tell, the only thing linking Karen Read to this particular crime that couldn't be refuted is the same thing linking all these other possible individuals to this crime. And that is simply Karen Read just happened to be there during the night John O'Keefe passed away. Just like those other individuals happened to be there that night John O'Keefe passed away. But beyond that, nothing else makes sense. How can you sit there and say Karen Read hit him with that SUV when the science doesn't prove that she hit him with the SUV? I mean, ARCA did an independent study for the FBI, and the jury wasn't supposed to know that they were hired by the FBI, but they had no skin in the game, and they told the FBI no way a car hit John O'Keefe. So if a car didn't hit John O'Keefe, how did John O'Keefe pass away? That's the real tragedy here, and that's the problem. That's the problem when you allow complacency to take over certain positions. That's the problem when you let law enforcement officers just do whatever they want to do without any recourse. Now, we got a piece of recourse in this particular trial because Proctor's gone, even though they fired him for a bullcrap reason. But keep in mind, all those other individuals at the Massachusetts State Police are still there. So really, what is going to change in this situation? I had said in the past that the probability Karen Read will be found guilty in this trial is pretty high when you look at the statistics. And we're going to talk about what I believe should happen based off this new trial and what I think will happen. But legitimately, I believe Hank Brennan should be ashamed of himself. He should be ashamed of himself how he conducted his business in that particular courtroom and how he acted in front of that jury. But honestly, I'm not shocked. He acted exactly like a defense attorney would act. And I believe Morrissey knew that going into this particular situation. I believe Morrissey knew the best shot he had at winning was to have somebody attack the defense the same way a criminal defense attorney would attack the prosecution. And I'm just calling it like I see it, but Lally ain't built like that. What I was able to see and read in the trial was nonsense. The whole trial was nonsense. Make no mistake about it. I believe the prosecution of Karen Read at this particular point is less about justice and more about being right. I believe Norfolk can't stand the possibility of them being wrong. I believe they can't stand the possibility of being embarrassed. And I think they're taking this thing personal. I believe at the very beginning they had an idea they were going to be able to prove it was her. They thought it was going to be easy. They thought she would confess and they could get some sort of plea deal done and everybody could go on about their way. I don't believe they anticipated any of this fight, but this was very much a political prosecution. This is very much what happens when you get complacent for who you vote for. Morrissey is a joke. That investigation is a joke. There's no way, based off just the evidence, anybody can prove Katen Read hit John O'Keefe. That's just how I'm seeing it. Like I've said, it is an open discussion channel. I've been wrong before and I might be wrong in this particular situation. But what evidence points to John O'Keefe being hit by a car? Because I'm just not seeing it. And I honestly don't believe anybody can factually say one way or the other what happened that night. And that's the real shame in this situation. Something that John didn't deserve happened to him. And we don't have all the answers because they completely jacked up this investigation. I get it, there might be a possibility that Katen Read was the one who hit him. Or Katen Read was in some way, shape, or form indirectly responsible for John passing. The problem is they can't prove it. And I'm not willing to set a precedence here on this channel. And I'm not comfortable with the precedence being set across the country where people say, well, it's who law enforcement said. Let's just take their word. They're right more than they're wrong. So odds are they're right here again. That is not how this is supposed to work. I mean, credit where credit is due. The prosecution's case was a lot faster, it was streamlined, and it made a lot more sense than when Lally was presenting the case. But even the way Hank Brennan presented that case, he still didn't prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. There's so much reasonable doubt in this situation. Honestly, I'm wondering, what are we doing here? What are we doing as a nation? Everything wrong with the judicial system was on full display for everybody to see during the second trial. Nothing changed. The evidence didn't change. Nothing Brennan did or said made the charges make any more sense. In fact, when he was crossing some of the defense witnesses, he was proving the defense's case. At least that's just how I heard it. And real quick, let's talk about what I think will happen and what I believe should happen. Me personally, I believe Katen Read is not guilty of this crime. I don't believe the state met their burden. I don't believe the state met their burden during the first trial, and they certainly didn't during the second. But if I had to guess and I was a betting man, I would say the verdict is going to go one of two ways here. Either the verdict will come back not guilty on these charges, or they'll come back with another mistrial. That's just what I believe the jury's going to do. And if it comes back with another mistrial, I believe the state's going to try this thing a third time. As absurd as it is, I believe that's what the state is going to do. I believe Norfolk is taking this thing very personal. Hopefully the jury will come back with a not guilty verdict on all counts, and we can move on and try to figure out what actually happened to John O'Keefe. But I'll go on and tell you, the odds of that happening are slim. More than likely they'll come back with some sort of hung jury and there'll be another mistrial. But if this jury finds Katen Read guilty on all these charges, I'll be completely shocked. Even though the statistics say they should come back and find her guilty, just given how all these things sort of play out. But that's my take. I hope you're being safe. Like I said, the world's going crazy right now. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. I appreciate your patience. And if you enjoy this and a more fair, open conversation, maybe check one of these videos out. Y'all be safe now.